General Michael Flynn tells President Trump with the big bill passed, now it's time to go after the deep state and start making arrests. The Russia Ukraine war negotiations are being held up by Macron in France, and Candace Owens explains the weirdest thing and the reasoning behind it. The big, beautiful bill has now passed in the House and will go to President Trump's desk to be signed on the 4th of July. And Congress is now calling for Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell to be investigated for lying about appropriating $2.5 billion. Thank you guys so much for liking and sharing these videos. It helps me out more than you know. So thank you so much. Let's jump into the news. Earlier today, the House of Representatives passed President Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill, a sweeping tax and spending package marking the most significant legislative victory of his two terms. The bill extends the Trump 2017 tax cuts, boosts border security, and cuts Medicaid and SNAP. It only passed by a razor-thin margin of 218 to 214, with Republican Thomas Massie and Brian Fitzpatrick voting against President Trump. This legislation will now head to President Trump's desk tomorrow at 5 o'clock, where there will be a flyover of jets and stealth bombers. Now, the night before was fraught with drama. House Speaker Mike Johnson, President Trump frantically lobbied GOP holdouts, holding a procedural vote open for hours instead of minutes in order to close this deal. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries wielded the magic minute and delivered an 8-hour and 44-minute speech, breaking Kevin McCarthy's record in 2021. Hakeem Jeffries passionately decried the bill, saying that it was cruel to all Americans, including Republicans, and that millions of Americans would lose their health care. Now, ironically, his speech swayed one GOP holdout, Ralph Norman, to vote yes. So while speaking for 8 hours and 44 minutes in order to shut down the bill, he gave them one of the final votes necessary for Trump to pass the bill. Now, this victory allows President Trump to pivot early in his second term to balancing the federal budget and driving economic growth. The bill's passage, despite CBO projections of adding over $3 trillion to the deficit, was celebrated by the stock market. The S&P 500 hit an all-time high, reflecting investor confidence in President Trump's pro-growth policies. The legislation's border security funding and tax relief for seniors and workers underscores Trump's America First agenda, setting the stage for his focus on GDP expansion and economic dominance, though critics warn of fiscal long-term issues. Now, Democrats are saying that this is going to cost him the majority in the Senate and over in the House. One expert is saying that he will actually lose 40 seats and will be down by almost 37 seats and will never get another thing passed. With Trump's big bill passing, however, many are urging him to now go for the throat of the deep state. Last night, I told you how the head of the CIA shared a new report proving that former President Obama, Clapper, Comey, and Brennan used their power to attack President Trump. Listen to what General Michael Flynn had to say about what advice he will be giving to President Trump now that the big, beautiful bill has passed.
What needs to be done here?
I would pull my team in, the close, trusted personal advisors he has, and I would say something along the lines of, look, we just crushed the Iranian nuclear program and set them back 10 years, let's say. I want this team to crush the deep state, just like we just crushed the Iranian nuclear program. But I want the setback to be forever. So we have got to come up with some ideas right now to massively shut down agencies, organizations, maybe whole departments, get rid of a whole bunch of people. And we also have to, and I would be looking right at my attorney general and probably at the director of national intelligence and saying, you two work together. And I would direct both of those individuals to come to me with a plan, I'd give them maybe 72 hours. And I'd say, I want a plan for an investigation. And then I want to see some indictments, and I want to see some people brought in for questioning right now. It's good versus evil. And we better understand right now that if we don't take the evidence, if we don't take the information that we are getting, and the American people are standing there like me right now, we're standing or we're sitting and we're saying, please, Mr. President, take action.
Okay, so General Michael Flynn, former head of the national security under Obama, thrown in jail because of the Russiagate situation and the Logan Act. He is now saying, when he speaks to President Trump after the signing of the big, beautiful bill, now it's time to go for the throat of the deep state, shut it down forever, bring people in, file indictments, arrest people. And he's saying, I would give Pam Bondi 72 hours to get this thing up and running and done. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about this? I think it's great. I say go for it. Let's get this thing done. They have ruined the country, and it's time to now take back our country and get these criminals in jail. Now, you never hear from President George W. Bush unless he needs to shame Americans or President Trump. Well, former presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama, alongside U2's Bono, publicly condemned President Trump's decision to dismantle USAID. Absorbed into the State Department on July 1, in an emotional video conference, Obama called the move a colossal mistake, while George W. Bush lamented the impact on his AIDS relief program, credited with saving 25 million lives. Bono, reciting a poem, claimed the cuts could lead to millions of deaths, a narrative echoed by a Lancet study projecting 14 million preventable deaths between now and 2030. The trio's rhetoric framed Trump's decision as catastrophic, with Bono's earlier claim of 300,000 deaths debunked on the Joe Rogan show. Critics, including Trump and Elon Musk, labeled USAID a slush fund rife with fraud, with Elon Musk calling it a criminal organization. The former president's rare rebuke, amplified by Bono's emotional appeal, appears designed to preemptively blame Trump for global humanitarian fallout, despite Doge's finding of mismanagement and massive amounts of fraud. Now, Mike Benz, former cybersecurity, said on X, the narrative as establishment fear-mongering, while supporters of the cuts argue it aligns with Trump's America First priority. So basically, Bono, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, they are using fear and emotion to try to shame President Trump. But what we have found with USAID is it was a massive slush fund to get Democrats reelected, to put millions of dollars into the pocket of Democrat children and wives and husbands. On top of that, even the head of USAID admitted that for every dollar, 90 cents never went anywhere but into salaries. So this project was not doing very much good. It was actually hurting the country. I mean, even Jeb Bush, George W.'s brother, has said several nice things about Trump's leadership, including on the border and his success with the Iran bombing mission. Pretty crazy. When will the Russia-Ukraine war ever come to an end? In a recent episode on her show, Candace Owens claimed that members of the Trump administration directly informed her that Ukrainian peace negotiations were being delayed by French President Emmanuel Macron, allegedly due to Candace Owens investigating whether Macron's wife, Brigitte Macron, is actually a man. So I'm going to put this up on the screen for us to look at together, but this is actually really crazy. And she's saying not only is the Trump administration trying to pressure her to stop investigating the real gender of the French president's wife. But now even President Trump has reached out to her and said, listen, for the good of America, I need you to shut this down. Listen to this.
When I call that person back, they tell me something that is even stranger. They say, look, I again am the messenger here. What I was told from somebody that's pretty high up at the White House is that Emmanuel Macron is holding up negotiations to end the Russian and Ukrainian war unless you stop speaking about his wife. And I'm just going, what? What are you saying? What are we even speaking about? What do you mean negotiations between Russia and Ukraine? I'm just like, looking into a story at my house. I've got a very small team here, and you're telling me that somehow negotiations are being held up and it needs to be communicated to me that I got to stop talking about Brigitte? What are we saying? And then I'm asking myself in my mind, because I hang up this phone, I am in true shock. Did Emmanuel Macron pretend to fly into DC under the guise of negotiations, the Russia and Ukraine war, and then instruct someone on his entourage to have an off the books discussion, a little meeting on the side, maybe somebody again, like a Susie Wiles, where he made his truer demands? Like, hey, this is for the pictures. Me and Trump are talking about you. We're going to get it done. And then what really goes on behind the scenes is like, we're not doing anything until that little podcaster, Candace, agrees to shut her mouth. What? This is crazy. This is absolutely insane. Okay. So we ended the conversation. I say, I'm going to sleep on this. It's a lot to process. I remember I get into bed and I just turned to my husband and I say, no one will ever believe us. Just something that just arrived at me very slowly. I said, no one will ever believe that this just took place. And my husband's like, yeah, no, this is just very, very strange. And I promised the individual that I would pray on it, that I would think further about the situation. What are the implications here? And I then call him back the next day and I say, look, this is pretty weird. You have to admit this is pretty weird. And you're not really giving me any details. And I kind of want to know who specifically you spoke to, because I think it kind of matters. Is somebody trying to do a side deal while Trump is doing a different deal? And at that moment, he's honest and he says, no, President Trump was on the phone too. And I go, oh, are you kidding me? You didn't tell me this yesterday? That there was some sort of a conference call and President Trump is on the line? And you didn't mention, I go, did you lie to me yesterday? Were you trying to pretend that it was like a third party person? And he says, no, I didn't lie to you. Like, I got a phone call and I obviously in the background, Trump communicated something to me. So he was there when the phone call took place. And I'm going, what the heck is going on?
So she goes on later to say that she gets a personal phone call from President Trump. He jumps right in. He's complimenting her, saying her podcast is such a success, even though she's been bad-mouthing Trump over the Israel-Gaza situation for about 6 months now. And I guess President Trump said, listen, you got to quit talking about Emmanuel Macron's wife being a guy. Like, I got to get this Russia-Ukraine war ended. So anyway, let me know in the comments. This is crazy, right? Like, they've tried to sue her. They've tried to get her shut down. They've threatened defamation. Now they've got the president of the United States and the White House getting involved, saying, this podcaster in America needs to shut up about my wife's gender, or else I'm going to hold the Russia-Ukraine war hostage. It's crazy that this is a story that I'm even having to cover. Let me know your thoughts down below. All right, now a new era in American air power is taking flight, and it's stealthier, smarter, and deadlier than ever. You thought the B-2 bombers that took out the Iran nuclear program were amazing. There's these new B-21 Raider bombers, and I think that they are going to be really cool. So let's go ahead and listen to what they can do from this general.
And then what was the next? Right after the B2 you came up with?
Now we have the B-21, and the B-21 is just it's a next iteration forward. It's better stealth, better delivery, and that is it's in its testing and beginning production phase. It's a fantastic platform, and it's going to be the follow-on to the B-2.
And what kind of things will it do that the B2 can't?
Well, it will be able to penetrate deeper. It'll have more low observability, so it'll be tougher to find, and it will be able to penetrate deeper into enemy airspace and be able to, as we say, put warheads on foreheads anywhere the president might want.
So that while we're working on that, the B-21, you're also working on the B-47, correct?
F-47, yes.
F-47, my bad. So tell me about the F-47. I remember Secretary Hegseth mentioned it to the president. How far along are you, and what will that do?
Well, it was a great day this spring when President Trump announced that we were going forward with the F-47. There was a competition that was had amongst industry, and Boeing won the competition. And that program is very far along in what we call the risk reduction phase, where you're learning the new technology, the new concepts, new ways of manufacturing. All those are brand new. And so now we're at the point where we're going to continue the building and the testing. We hope to have one flying within the next 3 years.
All right. So new military equipment coming out. This one is supposed to be more agile, even harder to spot, greater accuracy. Like he said, put payloads on foreheads. I mean, pretty crazy stuff. I heard Tucker Carlson speaking with somebody about new helicopters that the military is working on that are like top of the line, crazy, amazing. Now, Jim Jordan, House Judiciary Committee chairman, says he's reviewing efforts by the Trump team to launch an investigation against Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell over political bias and misleading members of Congress with his testimony. The push is being led by Federal Housing Finance Agency Director Bill Pult, who accuses Jerome Powell of deceiving lawmakers into giving $2.5 billion to renovate the Federal Reserve's headquarters. Now, jobs are up, wages are up, inflation is down, but interest rates remain high. It's costing the United States government over $400 billion. It's costing you and me. Inflation they've gotten inflation down, but they can't go lower because you've got millions of businesses dealing with high interest rates. So that's got to come down. Now, both Pulte and Trump have called for Powell's resignation, accusing him of misconduct. In an interview with Bloomberg, Jim Jordan said no formal plan has been made yet, but emphasized that executive branch oversight is within the committee's responsibility. President Trump, who originally appointed Jerome Powell in his first term, said that Powell is now being partisan, playing for Democrats, and hurting the United States of America. All right, now speaking at an HR conference in Chicago, former President Joe Biden shared that he's writing a memoir about his time in office. He then snuck in how he's receiving phone calls from several European leaders urging him to get back into politics because things are getting crazy. Now, every president writes a memoir. Biden said his will be about 500 pages long. It does make me wonder, is he going to use stolen material from when he was a senator or vice president? I don't really know, right? Additionally, since leaving office in 2025, Joe Biden said he's grown increasingly concerned about the direction of the country under Trump, specifically with NATO, Russia, Ukraine. And he said he doesn't really like what President Trump is doing because he's unwinding everything he worked so hard for. Well, you guys did the exact same thing to Trump, and it made all of our lives more difficult and more expensive. He says that he plans to get back out on the speaking circuit in order to keep good conversations going. More like collect speaking fees, if you ask me. All right, his sidekick, Vice President Kamala Harris, is on the verge of deciding whether to run for California governor. Here's the rock and the hard place that she's stuck between, right? She really wants to be the first female president and a black one in her mind, right? At the same time, she probably knows she's going to lose, but she might become governor of California, where they have lots of crazy wackadoos out in California, right? So right now, Harris is leading 41% approval for becoming governor of California. You guys can have her, right? Like, just give me the ocean, San Diego, and Disneyland, and I'm good to go. Keep your hands off the rest of it, right? So she might end up going. I mean, one thing she could brag about is, look how successful the LA riots were in sticking it to Donald Trump. All right, someone that I would like to become governor, Vivek Ramaswamy, has raised over $9.7 million, breaking a record for the most raised in the first quarter of fundraising. He is backed by Trump. He is backed by Elon Musk. And right now, he is by far projected to be the big winner. So this is huge. Final story. President Trump announced that he has closed a deal with Vietnam. They will continue to pay us 20%, and anything we sell into Vietnam will be at a 0% tariff. And Vietnam says they couldn't be happier. They just want access to the American markets, which is about $123 billion deficit with Vietnam. So we're talking about billions and billions of dollars by doing trade with Vietnam. All right, that's my update for today. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with General Michael Flynn that now that Trump is done with the big, beautiful bill, that it's time to investigate, arrest, indict? We know that these people are criminals. We know it. The evidence is out there. Now put it in front of a grand jury and let's put some people in jail. That's my opinion. That would be a great start to the 250th year of America being a nation. That would be so amazing. Let me know your thoughts down below. I love you guys. Have a happy 4th of July. I love America. I believe those of you who watch me love America. So God bless America. God bless our president. And God bless each and every one of you. Have a great rest of your night.